My name's Phil Lekkas. I'm from Greece. If I had any advice to give about essays, and this is advice that I took to heart when I was writing mine, was just kind of write about what it is that you think makes you unique or is like the essential you. So I wrote about being international and coming from a whole bunch of different places and having all kinds of different experiences as a consequence of that. But then in my supplemental essay, for example, I just wrote about a member of my family, like a slightly distant relative, and just kind of described him, his relationship to me. It was actually more of a kind of a humorous essay than anything else, and it seemed to work, I guess. So, though I am from Greece, studying at the U.S. isn't that different. I think compared to my alternatives, I went to a British school and I did live in the U.S. when I was younger. But despite that, I think kind of what's characteristic of the U.S., which I wouldn't find elsewhere, is a pretty kind of broad range of classes to choose from, a very large focus on extracurriculars, and your extracurriculars generally play a huge role in determining who it is you hang out with, and like what your reputation is on campus. So I think those things in particular are what distinguish my. As far as I know, there's only a few universities that have needs-blind admission policies, which means they don't consider your financial aid application process when they're considering whether to accept you or not. In my case, I only applied to universities that were pretty generous, that I think were needs-blind. And when it came down to actually getting the money, they were pretty generous. The application process is pretty straightforward. You have to submit a bunch of financial documents, things like, mortgage payment statements or whatever, and then they will just evaluate your application and determine whether or not you're deserving of funds. Yale in particular is very generous, as are a number of particularly well-endowed institutions. But there are also other opportunities available for people wishing to finance their international education. And Yale in particular, and I assume some other universities as well, don't subtract external support from the aid that they would give you. So you can basically just top up with any other source of income and have that, I guess, as like a disposable income on the side if Yale's generous enough to give you like a ton of money. I think it's very welcome and accommodating. I think they make a lot of resources available for you to be able to integrate as soon as possible. Some of those I'd suggest might backfire and encourage the international community to be a little too introverted, but I think that's also a natural consequence of the fact that often you're in a foreign country and you really just want to hang out with people that you can relate to. But I think over time, because of the resources made available to you, you integrate pretty seamlessly into the American community, and I think by at least nearing the end of my time there, I'd say I have as many American friends. I don't have disproportionately many international friends, despite the fact that I'm an international student.